Today we're going to be learning a new factoring method. The factoring method we're learning is difference of squares. So let's first start off with review. So how would we multiply these two binomials? We learned FOIL or box method, but I'm going to just do FOIL. So x times x gives us x squared. X times -2 is -2x. 2 times x is positive 2x, and 2 times -2 is -4. Now we need to combine our like terms, which is our middle two. So -2x plus 2x cancels out and gives us 0x or nothing. So we just have x squared minus 4. So this answer here is the difference of squares. So we have a squared, which is our x squared, minus b squared, which is our 4. So we could separate that into a minus b times a plus b. So truly what we're doing is finding this what times what gives us x squared. That would be x's. What times what gives us 4? That'd be 2 times 2. Has to be perfect squares, so your perfect squares. And then have to have a minus sign in between. So order does not matter. You could have x plus 2 times x minus 2 or x minus 2 times x plus 2. So there's 4 steps for factoring difference of squares. The first step is there only needs to be 2 terms and can only be 2 terms. Is the first term a perfect square? And then is the last term a perfect square? Is there a subtraction in between both of those 2 perfect squares? If you can answer all 4 of those questions with yes or true, then you are going to be factoring by difference of squares. Let's look at some practice problems. So number 1, we have x squared minus 25. So do we have a perfect square here? It's x squared perfect. It's 25 perfect. Do we have a subtraction problem? So x squared is perfect and 25 is perfect. So our answer is going to be the square root of x squared, which is x plus, what's the square root of 25? That's 5. Then we rewrite the same thing, but with subtraction, x minus 5. Now let's look at number 2. Do we have a greatest common factor we can factor out between 16x squared minus 9? We do not. So now let's look. Is 16x squared a perfect square? Is 9 a perfect square? And then are we subtracting these 2 terms? The answer is yes to all 3 of those. So 16 is a perfect square. So 4 times 4 gives you 16. X squared becomes just x. And then the square root of 9 is 3. So our first binomial is 4x squared plus 3. We rewrite the same thing, but it becomes a subtraction. So 4x minus 3. So that was number 2. Let's look at number 3. 81a squared minus 49b squared. Do we have a greatest common factor we can factor out first? We do not. So then we factor by the difference of squares, since 81a squared minus 49b squared fit our qualifications. So the square root of 81 is 9. square root of a squared is a, plus square root of 49 is 7, square root of b squared is b. Then we rewrite the same thing, but subtraction. So 9a minus 7. Number 4. Do we have the greatest common factor between these two terms? We do. The greatest number we can factor out is a 3. Let's go on and do that. We factor out a 3. We are left with 25 x squared minus 4. Now, looking just inside our parentheses, do we have a difference of square problem? We do. So let's go on and factor it. So our first term would factor out to be 5x. Our second term would be 2. So plus 2 for our first binomial. Our second binomial would be the same thing, but minus 2. Then we cannot forget to bring down our greatest common factor of 3. Number 5. Do we have a greatest common factor here? We do. And it is 2. We factor out a 2. We're left with 9c squared plus 4d squared. Do we have a difference of square problem? We do not, because we cannot factor because there is no subtraction. This right here is addition. So this is as far as we can factor this lovely problem. The last problem we're going to look at is number 6. Negative 64 plus 4m squared. Before we can start on this problem, we need to rewrite it so the subtraction is in the middle of the problem. So we're going to have 4m squared minus 64. Now it looks like our other problems we've been working with, except for number 5. So is there a greatest common factor we can factor out here? Yes, we have a 4 we can take out of both terms. So we get m squared minus 16. Now, difference of squares. How would we factor the inside parentheses? Well, m squared would factor out just to be the m, then 16 would be a 4. So our first binomial is m plus 4. The second one would be the same thing but subtract. So minus 4. And then you bring down the greatest common factor. And then that is how you factor by the difference of squares. I hope that helped you today. Please reach out if you have any questions.